Good afternoon. We have Antonia, we have Michael, we have Gillian just joining. Please feel free, it's a small group at the minute, there's 4 of us. So please feel free to pop your cameras on if you can. I know it looks as if Antonia's on an iPhone there. Is that Antonia who sent me an email? I got your email if it's the same Antonia. Hi, and here's Michael as well. Yes, good.
I was on mute. Yes, it was me.
Brilliant. Good. Good to see you. Good to see Michael. Michael's jumping in, joining the course. We've got Gillian, Robert's joining. We've got User joining. Don't know who User is. Hi, User. Hi, Robert. Susanna. Please feel free to pop your cameras on if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to pop your cameras on, that's great. We've got a small group. So if you want to ask questions, you can ask questions in the chat. Please feel free just to pop any questions in the chat, but also just shout out, just unmute yourself and just open up the mic. I'll just give it another moment. As with these things that are free, you get loads of people signing up, and then we always get a nice small group joining. We have Susanna. Hi, Susanna. Good to see you. Robert's jumping in. User, so somebody's called you. Who's User? What User? Who are you? Because it just says User on your name badge there. You can unmute.
Sorry, I'm Robert. Beg your pardon.
Sorry, I missed what you said.
Beg your pardon, I'm Robert. Hi.
Another Robert. So we got 2 Roberts. There's another Robert. Robert and Robert is joining us. That's good. And I'm liking the look of Antonia's background there. It looks very relaxing. I want to be there. Right, great. Good to see you. Thanks for jumping in. I know a few of you here, a couple of you here, 3 of you here. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Gray Caws. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and about the Oxygen Advantage Instructor Training. I had quite a few people contacting me to say, oh, what's involved in the training, giving me a call and stuff. So I just thought it's a good idea just to do a little webinar where I can answer any questions. So I'm going to go through the process of the training, what you get in with the training, and then also show you an element of the online training that you get with Patrick, because what people often think about is they just get the 3 days, that's all you get, and then you're just left to your own devices. It's certainly not that. And Michael is joining the training actually next week, the next one that's coming up. So feel free to chip in, because we had our little catch up earlier on as well. So I'm going to share my screen. I've got a little bit of a presentation, but obviously there's time for questions and answers. But as I'm going through, if you've got any questions, just do feel free just to drop that in the chat as well. Let me just do this. So you should be able to see. This is always the case now, because I have to come out of screen share when other people want to join in. So I think Oscar is joining in there. That's good. You should be able to see the screen there. Can everybody see the screen all right? And you can all see me. That's good. Good. Oxygen Advantage Instructor Training Program. This is in Scotland, actually, this picture. Robert number 2 will recognize this picture. So this was taken in Scotland. I'll go through what I want to go through in this session. For those of you who don't know me, I'll give you a little bit more information about myself. This was a really good question I got asked the other day. It's like, why do we breathe? And it's sort of like when we're looking at breath work, we go to the point beyond why we breathe and how breath work, what the benefits of breath work are. But it was a good question for somebody to say, well, what is the importance of breathing? And they were quite genuine about that. So just have a little think about that. If you've got any ideas, pop it in the chat. And then we'll look at oxygen. I put OA here. It's a lot easier just to write OA than Oxygen Advantage. So we'll look at what the Oxygen Advantage is and the benefits of practicing the Oxygen Advantage. One of the big benefits of the Oxygen Advantage is that everything that we teach, everything that we do, all of the research is backed by various bits of science. And it's not science that Patrick has just done for the Oxygen Advantage. It's science that's out there that backs up what we're teaching. And then I'll go again a little bit more into information on how to become a coach. And then obviously, as I said, there'll be time for questions and answers. A little bit about me. I changed careers back in 2010. I was originally a web designer, and I'm going to have to do this again. I have to come out the screen so I can use that to let people in. I'll just jump out of screen share for the minute. So just a little bit of information about myself. Changed careers 2010 now it was that I decided to train as a personal trainer. It's for personal reasons. My mum wasn't well. She had cancer, and I just had that real sort of want to help. And it was always something that I was interested in fitness. I was going to the gym. I was seeing a trainer once a week. I was really into my running. I enjoyed running. I wouldn't say I'm very athletic or very...
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Don't see, at least me, I don't see your presentation.
Yeah, I've just come out of the presentation for a minute.
Okay, fine.
So just talk about me. You don't have to look at a picture of me. But thanks for highlighting. I thought I'd just pull out of the presentation, then I'll go back to that. So trained as a personal trainer, and because I wanted to teach running technique, and because I had no background in anatomy, physiology, health and fitness, I did a personal training course. And what was great about that is I already worked for myself. So I was working for myself as a graphic designer. Built this conservatory in not even 1999, where I set this up to sort of like be my little office space. And this year, hopefully, I say hopefully, this is going to be knocked down and I'm going to get a little bit of space at the bottom of the garden, because it is literally 20, how many years ago? It's well over 20 years actually, that it's starting to leak even a little bit more and starting to rot. Anyway, that's another story. So trained as a personal trainer. And I was working on a running technique called Chi running with a guy in the States called Danny Dreyer. And how I got in, there's two ways I got involved with the breath work is, firstly, as a running coach, I wanted to work with an England athletics coach. So I met a guy called Robin McNellis, and he's an England athletics coach. And just by complete coincidence, he is also a physiotherapist. So he works at one of the London leading hospitals we've got a thunderstorm now as well. He works at one of the London leading hospitals with prehab and rehab after people have had heart operations, lung operations. So the first thing we did in my first running session with him was check my breath rate. And I was like, why is this guy checking my breath rate? And now, all those years later, I know exactly why he was checking my breath rate. So when I was working with Robin, I really straight away understood the importance of efficient breathing in terms of movement, in terms of athletic performance, or just movement in general in running. So he really taught me the basis of Pateco, actually, although he wasn't Pateco trained. He knew Patrick McKeown. So we talked a lot about breath work, and this was back in 2007 when I was working with Robin. This was before I did the personal training. And then in 2016, this is how I got introduced to Patrick McKeown, who, if you don't know, is the founder, the breath guru of the Oxygen Advantage. I got in contact, or I got connected to Patrick through Danny Dreyer, who is the Chi running guy in the States, because in the Oxygen Advantage, in the Oxygen Advantage, Patrick references Danny. So Patrick had been in contact with Danny, and Danny had said, well, Gray's in the UK, because I was nearer, obviously, in London, to Dublin, to Galway, rather than the States to Galway. So I got involved with Patrick, and we did the first ever Oxygen Advantage Masterclass in London, literally just up the road from here. And I did his first instructor training. So I was with him at the very beginning of Oxygen Advantage. He's obviously got a lot of background in Buteyko and breath work way before Oxygen Advantage. But when he started to introduce the Oxygen Advantage, I was one of the first coaches there with him. Went over to Galway. He has this fantastic place in Galway. I don't know if anybody's watched any of his YouTubes or any of his podcasts, but just see they've just had this fantastic new studio built over in Galway, and I was lucky to be there last August actually for a master instructor meeting. So you can imagine the fun we had there with all of these different styles of coaches and different styles of way of teaching and everything in over in Galway. So that's how I got involved in Patrick. And then what we used to do with the instructor training is originally we used to do it in London. Patrick would come over for 3 days. And we do it together. I mean, he was obviously the lead coach on that. I was sort of like assisting and helping him out. And we do big groups. We get everybody together, big groups for the instructor training over here. We do 3 days. We do 1 day where we'd have a masterclass. So we bring other people in and just say, right, we're just going to teach you 1 day masterclass. And that was it. That was all. I say that was all that you got. You got those 3 days training. Then, of course, we had lockdown. So lockdown meant, how are we going to do the training? So Patrick started to do these online sessions. And then I was doing some online one-to-ones at the time of people who'd already booked some instructor training in person. But how it sort of like developed from that is that we still have this online element that Patrick still delivers. And I'll show you that in a minute, but he goes through 14 hours of teaching online. So it's 7 classes. But what then happens is you can just do that. So you can just go online and watch the 14 hours of training and go through the exam and go through the case studies with that. Or now what is happening and what was happening from lockdown and coming out of lockdown is that the master instructors, so anyone who's qualified as a master instructor, can give some in-person training. So that in-person training is all part of the course, but it's very much consolidating what we're learning in the online stuff, giving you a little bit more practical stuff. And what I find is really good about that is every master instructor has got different skills. So, for example, Jacko and Georgie are doing an instructor training. Georgie does female breathing, really focusing on that. I do one in London just on my own, small group on my own. We've got one coming up next weekend. And then also I do one with Andrew Ritchie. Antonio was talking about that in Scotland. So the very different styles of 3-day workshops or masterclass or however you want to look at them. But we all cover the basics, the principles of the Oxygen Advantage, and you also get all of the online training stuff as well. So that's just a little bit about how that works. I'm going to jump back in now to share the screen. Where's it gone? So yeah, here's what you could have watched there. Running coach, personal trainer, master kettlebells. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention kettlebells. Kettlebells, I love kettlebells. Just been working with a client doing some kettlebells this morning. Oxygen Advantage and Buteyko, 2016. Oh, of course, yeah. So the other thing in 2020, I did the Qigong instructor training. That was everybody did an online training course in lockdown, thankfully, because a lot of you did my online training courses in lockdown. And I did a Qigong teacher training course. Because I'd done a lot of work with the Qi running, I wanted that little bit more understanding of Qigong. And actually, it's a beautiful combination of bringing simple movement into breath work. And actually, what I've found, I'm doing some corporate work at the minute, and a lot of the people who are new to breath work can struggle a little bit. It's like, oh, I'm a little bit anxious if you're just focusing on the breath. But actually, if you bring in a little bit of movement to it, some really simple movements, that makes a big difference. So it takes away that sort of anxiety because you're not paying you're not having to focus as much on the breath. So in my particular trainings in London and also in Scotland, we do an element of Qigong, and we do simple stuff that if you're a coach moving forwards and wanting to use those, you don't have to be a Qigong instructor. It's literally movement. So it's quite good if, for example, you're not maybe fitness based, you know what I mean? We've had voice coaches, we've had nutritionalists coming to do the instructor training. Maybe if you're a voice coach, you don't really want to be doing repeated sprintability with clients because your clients might not want to be doing that. And also you might not be confident, sufficiently trained to be able to manage teaching someone how to sprint or how to squat or how to do a push-up. So what I found with the Qigong, it's a really nice way for anybody to be able to incorporate movement with breath rather than just sitting and doing breath work. So shove some things in the chat. Let's make it a bit more interactive because I've done a lot of talking already. What do you think? What's the importance of breathing? This was the question that somebody asked me. I've come up with sort of like 3 points that I thought of, not breath work. So this was it because I was like, oh yeah, well, it'll do this or it'll do that. But why do we breathe? Anybody stick anything in the chat? Let's see if I can see the chat. There's the chat. See, when I'm on full screen, my mouse disappears for some reason today. Come on, somebody can think of something to the importance of breathing. We can go, how long can we go for without eating? How long can we go for without drinking? How long can we go for without breathing? To exist, that's a good one. Yeah, exactly. It is. It's like if we don't breathe, we won't be here. We won't exist. Gas exchange, yeah. So CO2 in, CO2 out, oxygenation, oxygenate, brill. So you're all coming up with the same points actually, which is nice. And to improve movement, yeah. So if you can't breathe, you can't move, exercise, brill. So these are the things I thought of, the 3 things that sort of like came to mind when somebody asked me that question. Is oxygenation, you just all said that. So in Qigong, when we talk about energizing or bringing energy into the body, Qi is energy. The first point of bringing energy into the body is breathing in. We often think about food as energy, obviously it is, but actually that first port of call for energy is breathing in. And as somebody said there, carbon dioxide and oxygen. The other thing is energy production as well, because it's all well and good to say we're bringing oxygen in, we're blowing out carbon dioxide, or we're breathing out carbon dioxide. But this is where we then start to think, right, how can I improve my breathing? Because again, as I'm sure you know, I've got a lot of things on Facebook. Oh, we all know how to breathe. Why do we have to learn how to breathe? Why do you have to teach people how to breathe? Actually, we want to make sure that we're breathing as optimally as possible, so that we make sure that we're getting the oxygen supply to the cells to boost energy and to help keep you energized. Because I think a lot of people tend to think you breathe in and that's oxygenation. It's yes, you are breathing oxygen in, but then we have to get oxygen from the lungs into the blood, and we have to get oxygen through the blood and through into every single cell in the body. So that's when we start to look at the reasons, the benefits of OA and understanding Oxygen Advantage. Can anybody think of, let me just come out there again and let me just have a look at the chat. Can anybody think of a regulate, focus and calm, exercise, improve movement? Yep, good. So actually I've got the last one as well. So just reducing, come back down there, stress reduction. So I think I put stress because I was thinking about actually, firstly, we can control the breath. It's interesting, we can't physically control our heart rate just by going, right, I'm going to slow my heart rate down. We can through certain breath work, but actually one of the things that we can take control of is of the breath, and usually it's to help calm and relax. It can be to energize as well, but I just put stress reduction as that third part there, and really just focusing on that slow, deep light breathing, just to activate that, put the brakes on the rest and recovery. So that reduces stress, anxiety, and helps with sleep. I just thought that was a really good question that somebody asked that I never really sat down and considered before. So that was a little point there. Principles of the Oxygen Advantage. I know a lot of you know, let me just close that down a minute. I know a lot of you know the Oxygen Advantage, but again, it's just to go over it again. I think the key point for people to take away is actually, if there's one thing that anybody learns from any OA practice, is that the more you breathe through the nose, where necessary, where possible, the benefits of nasal breathing. So just that breath awareness and nasal breathing is one of the key points. Breathing efficiency, we talked about that just then again. If we can make our breathing more efficient, it helps us improve clarity, focus, reduces breathlessness, and actually improves the respiratory function as well. So I would say breathing efficiency is the second key principle of Oxygen Advantage. And then something that is really key to building resilience is that CO2 tolerance. And I often get a little bit conflicted with this, because we don't want to do so many breath holds. There's a lot of people out there really pushing the strong breath holds and everything, which is great, which is good, but we don't want to overemphasize the strong breath holds a lot of the time, because you don't necessarily need to do a lot of strong breath holds. It's a bit like high intensity training. You wouldn't want to go and do high intensity training all day long. But one of the benefits of building your tolerance to CO2 is that it reduces breathlessness. So it reduces the respiratory response to when you start to move or when you start to exercise. But also from a psychological point of view, if you're a little bit stressed and you're catching that breath up here all of the time, the more tolerance you've got to CO2, the more you can help bring that, slow the breathing down, bring it a little bit deeper, bring it a little bit lighter. Because it's all well and good saying to someone, oh, just slow the breath. But if they don't have tolerance to CO2, it's very difficult to slow the breath. And that can just create more stress and more panic, really. So CO2 tolerance and then breath hold. So that ties in. There are things that you can do to improve CO2 tolerance without breath holds. This is what I emphasize quite a little bit. Things like the nasal breathing can help improve CO2 tolerance. Extended exhale can help improve CO2 tolerance. So it just doesn't have to be just breath holds. And then I think the key again is this idea of just breathing light and slow and seep and deep. There's a good spelling mistake on there. Light, slow, and seep breathing in a resting posture. So again, when you're exercising, you want to be breathing as light as possible. We don't want to be over breathing, but it's not about breathing the same in different situations, in different circumstances. So I thought those are sort of like, if you think of the key principles of Oxygen Advantage, those are those 5 key principles. Benefits: improve breathing efficiency. So really helping you breathe with more efficient, better oxygenation, better breathing patterns, better athletic performance. Reduce stress and anxiety, key again. I put there as well, improve recovery. This is a really important thing in terms of performance. If you're thinking about exercise performance, is we often forget about the recovery. But the recovery, as any trainer would say, one of the most important elements of any training program is the recovery. So how to improve recovery in between, if you're doing interval training or if you're doing a training session, what is the easiest way to bring the heart rate down, help you recover. And then better sleep again. Sleep is so important. So many times I've done workshops and you've had athletes or anybody just coming along and saying, oh no, but I sleep terribly. No, I do all my exercise, do all my training, I do my strength and conditioning. I don't sleep. Oh, I have awful night's sleep. And it's like, actually sleep is sort of like key to your recovery. It's when the body heals itself. It's when the brain clears itself. And we know you only need a small amount of poor sleep and you know what you feel like the next day. So a lot of emphasis is put on good quality sleep when we're looking at breath work, when we're looking at OA, helping to avoid or helping sleep apnea, snoring. And one of the easiest things to do when to help improve your sleep, and I'm sure a lot of you do it or know about it, is just that little bit of taping. And again, yeah, I've got a big beard, so I can't use the Myo tape, but I can just use that little bit of tape, and just a little bit of tape on the mouth is a really good way of helping you focus on, or helping that breath, breathing through the nose, going back to that, the nasal breathing. Backed by science. I like to know why we're doing stuff. When I'm working with clients, when I'm working with the instructors, we start off with why. And why are we doing resonance frequency breathing? Why do we breathe in for 4 and out for 6? Well, because the studies have shown that if we do resonance frequency breathing, it's when the heart rate variability is improved, and where you get that sense of being in the zone, and it's calming, it's relaxing, and there's benefits on the cardiovascular system. It helps to improve emotional and mental well-being. And there's plenty of studies out there backing that up, highlighting that, remembering that science does change. So it's not the be all and end all, and you've got to be careful on what studies you read. I haven't read every single study, but what you get, and I'll show you in a minute when we look at the online training section, is you get a whole list of articles that Patrick's gone through, that Patrick's researched, and then other people have put in there that we've all collected together in there. So just a little bit of science there, how breath hold helps improve respiratory conditions. That's just another little bit of science there. I'll go through now. Any questions before I just go through actually how the instructor training works? I know I've given you a little bit of an intro there on the Oxygen Advantage. Anybody got any questions before I crack on? No, it's good. Excellent. Somebody has. Yep.
I wrote it in the chat. Just one question for curiosity. Oxygen Advantage very much focuses on measuring the BOLT score. That means to measure the time I can hold empty lungs. And what to me sometimes is not clear, what is the first trigger where I should stop the timing? And then there is the other method offered by Andrew Huberman, who says the more significant measurement is that you inhale deeply and then measure the time you need to exhale very slowly. So the longer you take to exhale, or the longer you can take to exhale, the better it is. What is the better measurement, or is this something completely different?
It's a really good question, and I have that question, and I have that conversation and question with myself a lot of the time. The BOLT score is, as you're explaining there, normal breath in, normal breath out. It's not empty lungs. So this is where we've got to be clear, because what we're checking is where is the first point, where is that first trigger for you to want to take a next breath? Now, in Buteyko, I don't know if you're familiar with Buteyko or not, but in Buteyko, the BOLT score is actually called the controlled pause or the comfortable pause. So if I'm teaching, if I'm getting people to do the BOLT score, I normally start off calling it a comfortable pause, because it makes it a little bit more, it says what it does, it does what it says on the tin a little bit more. It's like, where can you pause to? Where do you feel comfortable? Yeah, now I need to take another breath in. It's not objective. It can't be objective, because it's not like getting up in the morning and standing on a pair of scales and going, I'm 70 kilograms and 75 kilograms. And it does vary a lot. I say a lot, it does vary. There are different things. If you have a poor night's sleep, if you hydration has an effect on it, what time of the day you do it. It's a bit like blood pressure. If you measure your blood pressure throughout the day at different times, it is going to vary. If you measure your heart rate at different times. So there is that circadian rhythm to take into account. From a female point of view, after the luteal phase, in the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle, that affects female breathing. Hormones change. So female breathing, females in that luteal phase, their breath rate is a little bit quicker. So that can generally affect the BOLT score. So this is a long way round of saying, measure the BOLT score, but take into account other things as well. So if what I suggest when I'm working with people is check your BOLT score, but also check what your resting heart rate is. Also check if you're into it, if you're into your gadgets and things, if you're checking heart rate variability. So I will always put those three measurements together: BOLT, resting heart rate variability. And then you'll see if they vary a lot. The other test, as you say there, quite rightly, is nice full breath in. How slowly can you exhale, out through the nose? Now, I like that as well, because again, that's showing tolerance to CO2. And actually what it's also doing is it is showing control of the diaphragm. So if people haven't got any control of the diaphragm, the breath is out. So they might be able to hold the breath. They might have a good BOLT score, but actually, have you got control of the diaphragm? Can you actually fill the rib cage up? Can you actually expand the rib cage? Do we have that space to take in a nice full breath? So both of them are measuring your tolerance to CO2, both of them in a very different way. Now, I'll be honest, I use both of those as well. So I will use both of those with clients. I'll do the BOLT score, and then we'll say, right, now let's do the countdown. How long slowly can you exhale? So I'd play around with all of those, as long as it's something that you understand why we're doing it. Is going back to that why. I hope that does that answer your question, or is that a very long way of saying what you thought I was going to say?
Yeah, it answers the question. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Susanna is going to, yes.
Yeah, I have a question. I track with the Aura. Is there any correlation, any information I can take out with my heart rate variability at night, my respiratory rate, and my heart rate, resting heart rate? Is there a way to extract a BOLT score from that information?
You can't extract a BOLT score unless you do a BOLT score with that. So I use exactly the same. I'm sorry, I'm not sticking one finger up. I have an Aura ring on as well. I use an Aura ring and a Whoop band. So I have all the gadgets on to see which work and which don't work. Most of them work well. So what I would do is you can have a little, I'll see if I can share this. Let me share my screen with you. So what I will give my clients and what I will get people to link to if they need to as coaches is I've created a little like Google Sheet, which will put all of those things together if I can find it. So just make a note of them. So that's exactly what I do is what is my readiness score in the morning? And then what is my resting heart rate? Resting heart rate and BOLT are pretty much connected. Resting heart rate and heart rate variability, I'm sure you'll back me up on this, is if your resting heart rate is up during the night, your heart rate variability will be down.
Yes.
That tends to be the case.
And there's also the respiratory rate, which is interesting.
Yes, so this is another really good point here. I'll just share this very quickly, and then we'll come back to respiratory rate. Where are we there? So the screen here. This is just a little sheet that I put together. Can you see that? I'll zoom in a little bit there. Can you all see that? Okay. So like, for example, say your BOLT is, I'll just put what the numbers are in there anyway. So we'll put on BOLT is 20, let's go 60 seconds. No, you never know. Well, we might have a BOLT of 60. Let's go 40. Resting heart rate is 50. And then your HRV, the HRV measurement I've got here would be without getting too technical for everyone, would be the RMSSD. So Aura, Whoop, do give you their score is the RMSSD. So if it says 56 or 50 or 40, That is the bit you put in there. And then it'll just give you, you get like a little graph here. This is just a Google sheet that I've put together. So that's a really nice way of not just relying on your Bolt score. And then if you see the big differences going all over the place, then you go, oh, hang on a minute, how can I, what's going on there? Interestingly, I've literally just had COVID recently, and for the first time, which is very odd because I thought I was immune, but I wasn't. Heart rate variability on the floor, literally bump. The day kicked out, resting heart rate up, bump. Bolt score didn't change. Now, whether that's just because I'm used to doing the Bolt score. So this again comes back to that point of Bolt score is a good measurement, but don't just rely on the Bolt score. And respiratory rate, this is another really good point you make there. When we're looking at, this is a point that often people miss, is when we're looking at resonance frequency breathing, when we say the studies are showing that anywhere between 3 breaths and 7 breaths per minute are sort of like the ideal breath rate. Remember, that's in a resting posture. So when they do these studies, they're sat in a temperature controlled room. I think it's like 24 degrees. They're watching a screen. Everything's calm and relaxed. They're not going through REM sleep, deep sleep, light sleep. So your respiratory rate, people go, oh my God, my respiratory rate's 14, 12, 17 overnight. I must be terrible. It should be 6. No way should it be 6. So that respiratory rate overnight, the normal respiratory rate overnight, and obviously during the day and stuff like that, because we're exercising, we're moving, is not 6 breaths per minute. So that will vary. It's the practice when we're doing that resonance frequency breathing. And the more we practice that resonance frequency breathing, the more in general the breath rate overall will slow. But again, a lot of people get sort of like het up about their breath rate being a little bit higher. I'm sure your breath rate isn't, it might maybe say to me it's 6 breaths per minute if it is overnight, but I'm sure it's not. Good, excellent, good questions. Anybody else got any questions? Any more questions before I just crack on? No? I will share my screen again and just go through how the training works. Somebody's just jumping in. So this is how I do the instructor training. As I said, there's a number of master instructors all around the world who are certified to do instructor training. So I'll go through how I work the instructor training and how I work with Andrew. This is a picture of Andrew, actually, who is the coach in Scotland, who I work with on the instructor training too. So do a 3-day in-person London workshop. So this is the one that Michael's coming along to next week. The London workshop, all of the workshops that we do are small group. So maximum in London, I do 6 to 8 people. And I think for me, that's important because I really want to make sure that you get plenty of individual attention and that I'm there to help you incorporate OA into whatever you're teaching, whether you're an osteopath, whether you are a nutritionalist, whether you are a therapist. So it's very much personalized training. This is what is great about having the freedom to be able to do 3 days in person plus the online stuff. If we had to get everything in that Patrick teaches online in 3 days, that would be a real challenge. We also do a 4-day in-person Scotland retreat. So this is different to the 3 days in the fact that it's a day longer, and it's a retreat style. So you're there in person all day. We do some additional stuff. We do some hot and cold therapy. We do Qigong at 7:30 in the morning every morning. And obviously you're staying in the venue, so we eat together, and we do some evening discussion groups as well. I have to say the last September was the first time we did this. The group has stayed together. It's really good. And I think, Antonio, you were talking about Sophie. I think it's Sophie who you met last year from last September's group. So I think hopefully it was Sophie who recommended you to jump into this. So they're a fantastic group. So that's the 4-day in person in Scotland. Then there's the 14 hours, as I mentioned before, live online with Patrick. And there's a lot of online training materials as well. I'll show you briefly in a minute. The good thing is that unlike a lot of training courses, they'll say, right, you have access to this training portal for a year. And then if you want to continue with access to that, you have to pay extra. Now, at the moment, there's no additional costs. There's no re-license fees or anything like that. You have lifetime access to the online training stuff. You can also jump into any of Patrick's live classes. So he's doing these live classes. I think he does them like every 3 months. So you don't have to watch them all at once, or you can go back in a year's time and watch the live classes. You don't have to repay or anything like that to do the training. And then for Andrew and myself, we do special bonuses. We've got a couple of extra courses that we do, which I'll explain a little bit more of in a moment. This is Alice, who did the Scotland retreat as well. So Alice was there last year. These are the type of things, sort of like we have like little modules, if you like. These are just a few ideas. This is not everything that we go through, but this is what we're looking at in the 3-day or the 4-day training. So what are the fundamentals of breathing? Breath awareness. I like to start with breath awareness, being aware of how we're breathing, being aware of the biochemistry and the biomechanics, because this is often some of the things that are missing from other breathing programs. Is, do they teach the biochemistry? Do people understand what goes on with oxygen, what goes on with CO2, that we can breathe too much air? A lot of breath work, if you mention breath work to people, they'll think of Wim Hof, they'll think of Conscious Connected, maybe rebirthing, all of these breath works that are really good in their own right, but understanding the fundamentals of breathing, that if you overbreathe, you don't get as much oxygen to the cells as you want to. So having that right balance of CO2 and oxygen is so key. And just coming back to the basics, nasal breathing, what we call breathing, or what we say breathing to our metabolic needs, all that fundamental stuff. And I'll never forget one training. I think it was one of the London trainings last year, and somebody was talking about hyperventilation, how it really is transformational, how people feel this amazing effect by doing hyperventilation, then holding your breath for a long period of time, and how it has this transformational effect on people. And then somebody very quietly at the back of the room said, but a lot of people get a lot more benefits and a lot more of a transformational effect just from closing the mouth. And I thought that was really nice. Is yes, you do get those experiences through hyperventilation and different styles of breath work, but actually just as important, if not more important to start with, for the general people and for athletes, is get your basic breathing right first, get that functional breathing right to start with at the very beginning. So we put a lot of emphasis on that. Analysis and assessment, your BOLT scores, your extended exhale. I mean, the extended exhale isn't necessarily taught in Oxygen Advantage, but as I say, it's something that I will use. And actually what I do in the Oxygen Advantage is extended exhale walking, because quite often people don't like to hold their breath when they're walking. So that's another really good way of building tolerance. And that's something that we explore in the training. The other thing just to say about the training that I and Andrew do is we'll spend a lot of time outside. And I think that's important where it's safe to do so, and whether the weather's not horrendous. But I think it's important to put breath work into real life situations like walking, and just being outside and exploring. It's great to learn in a classroom, but actually that physical, experiential practice is so key for me. And there's a big difference breathing outside to breathing inside it. So it can be a lot more calming, a lot more relaxing as well. The other thing is coaching and cueing. So this is another element. It's all well and good to know your stuff, to know your science, but how do you know how to coach someone and what type of cues to give someone? If somebody's stressed out, would you ask them to do the BOLT score straight away? Right now, like normal breath in, normal breath out, hold your breath. Go, 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 push, push, push. Might not be the right thing to do if somebody's coming in a little bit anxious. So it might be more appropriate just to do a little bit of movement first. So how you coach stuff, it's not just about reading a script or delivering a protocol or a series of exercises. The more I've learned over the years of personal training, the less I know about what works. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like you've got to be much more subtle. You've got to be much more nuanced. How do you motivate a client without putting them off? If you tell someone to go and do 20 minutes breath work every day for the next 2 weeks, they might do it for 2 or 3 days. Are they going to come back in 2 weeks and go, oh yeah, I've done that every day? Highly unlikely. You might do, you never know. You might prove me wrong on that. But how do you encourage people to tune in with their breath and really get the benefits of the practice in a nuanced, subtle way? How to integrate it. Again, this for me is key. It's not just about teaching the Oxygen Advantage. How do you integrate what we're learning in the Oxygen Advantage methods into different contexts? I mentioned again a voice coach, worked with a voice coach an excellent voice coach, now teaches the Oxygen Advantage. But she, like I say, she's not going to get her clients running up a hill doing breath holds. How does she incorporate Oxygen Advantage method into her training protocols? How can a nutritionalist maybe incorporate Oxygen Advantage protocols? And that for me is what's great about the method. It's not here's a series of exercises. You can incorporate the principles of OA into anything that you do. Just a few more points. Physiology and science, as I mentioned there, we talk about really highlighting the science. Breathing and athletic performance, how we can become optimal breathing for performance, how to build endurance and speed, recovery, again, that key point of recovery. A little bit on business and marketing, we touch at. We also do an online mentoring, couldn't think of the word then, mentoring program. That's additional to the instructor training. But I think it's important that we help as much as possible. I'm not a marketing expert, but I will share with you things that have worked for me, things that haven't worked for me. So just giving you a little bit of help on that, how to build client relationships, how to structure classes, how we structure our classes, and how to grow your business. And then, as I say, it's a couple of special bonuses just for Andrew and I's sessions. We do an Exploring Heart Rate Variability course. That's an online course which goes into more detail on heart rate variability. This isn't an Oxygen Advantage course, so this is separate to OA, but it's a course that we give away if you sign up for my London trainings or if you sign up for the Scotland trainings. And then also Run with Ease course. I think Gillian's done the Run with Ease course, and that's an online course which is really focusing. We call it Run with Ease. It's move with ease, basically. How do you move? How do you let breath guide the movement? Quite often we're pushing and the breath is trying to catch up with how we move. Somebody put, again, an importance of movement in breathing. So it really is movement guided by the breath. And that's another online course that you get access to if you jump in to the trainings. Just a few testimonials there. This was Sarah, who did the course last year, actually. It was really good. She's a movement and breath coach. And then Paul, who did, I think he was in the same group or one of the groups last year as well. Again, Paul owns Paul Collins Fitness. So there's just a few ideas or testimonials of saying how the course worked for them. And then just opening it up to any Q&As. Anybody got any questions? And then I will just quickly share the online stuff. Yes, somebody shouted.
It's me, Robert. The live online. So during the course, when we've got Patrick McKeown doing the live online, is he actually live online, or is it fact that it's the established videos that the course that he's already done that we will be played? You know,
No, he does. He does. You can do both. He does literally live online. So if you can make the live sessions, You can go in there.
During,
Sorry, I missed what you said there. I missed the end bit.
during the courses themselves, your courses.
Not
is it-
necessarily. Not
No, so
necessarily.
it's, you wouldn't be getting Patrick live as such.
Not during
you
the.
just-
I mean, it might coincidentally that might be a case.
That's exactly.
Yeah, but no, he has. I think, to be fair, I think the next dates are September when he's actually doing them live. But you can watch. I'll share the screen in a minute, and you'll see how it works. But you can watch them live, and then you can obviously go in and ask questions. There'll be a lot of people on there because there'll be people who've done his course before. There'll be people who have just signed up for it. So it's those are like worldwide. It's not just exclusively to our group. But yeah, they are live, but you also can then watch the playback. So say somebody signs up today and goes, right, I'd quite like to watch the first 2 classes that Patrick does. You can watch all 7 by next weekend. So you can watch the playbacks as well. Does that answer your question, Robert?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Anything else anybody wants to ask? Let me quickly share my screen then, and I'll just show you the online element to, it smells probably, no. Let me have a look, because I opened up, oh, there it is. Yeah, it's on the same thing, but I just opened it up on a separate tab. So can you see, you can all see there, yeah? So you get access to, it looks really complicated. It isn't, and you don't have to do all of this before or even during the training. It's just that there's a lot of stuff that you get. So obviously you get an introduction, you get a downloadable training manual. So this training manual ties in with the 7 classes that Patrick does. So class one will be in the training manual. But I also have hard copies of that. So if you sign up with me, can get you a hard copy of that. And then these are the live classes. Let's just have a look to see when the next ones are. So live classes with Patrick. So he's just done the April ones. Yeah, so it's September when he next does live sessions. So September the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. But what you can do is you can watch the playbacks of all of the April ones. So there you'll get the playbacks of the classes as well. And then he'll do refresher classes. Oh, here's the live recording. So there's all the playbacks of those classes there. So you've got the 7 classes. And then there's previous live classes. You can go back years and years and years of watching all the live recordings. Audio recordings of the classes. So if you want to go out and use it as like a podcast, if you're out running or walking, you can just listen to the audio of it. And then we've got various guided breathing audios that you can use. All these presentations, these are great. Again, you don't have to go through all of these, but say you want to look at breathing for females, there'll be a slideshow presentation, and then you could literally download that presentation and use it if you wanted to go and do a presentation. Say you're going into a corporate and wanted to do a presentation on breathing for females. Obviously, you'd go through it and you'd know your stuff, but you could literally use that presentation. Or like what I do, I prefer to make my own presentations, because then you can do them to your branding or your style or whatever, but then you can take some of this information from that presentation to use as well. So loads and loads of different presentations. Let's go back there. Presentations, essential learning. So all of the exercises that we'll go through in person practically, Patrick will go through the exercises in the online classes, but you also then get videos of the exercises. If you want to go, oh, I can't remember what the squats was like or the push-ups was like, you can have a little look on how Patrick's teaching those. Additional practical videos. So there's another one on the Bolt score. You can do the Bolt test, breathe light. Additional theory. So there's plenty of stuff. Anything that we do in the workshops together, I put in that little section. Essential theory. And then there's to pass, to certify, there's an online multi-choice exam to do. And then 3 case studies. The case studies we will go through at the weekend when we do the in-person, and I'll always help people with the case studies. And the other thing is that after the in-person stuff that we do, as a group, I'll do a couple of follow-up Zooms. So like maybe in a couple of weeks' time, I'll say to people, right, let's jump on a Zoom. If you've got any questions about the case studies, we can chat through that as a group on Zoom. And then what I also have ongoing for anyone who's done any of the training with me, or anyone who has done the mentoring program with me, actually, is every 4 to 6 weeks, we have like a Zoom catch up as well. So Andrew usually jumps on that as well. So there's 2 of us on that. So if people have done Andrew and my Scotland retreat. So we just get we build like that little bit of community. There's no extra cost for that. We don't charge for that. That's all part of our sort of like support network throughout. And that's just ongoing. It's not for a short period of time. Research library, this is what I was talking about in terms of all of the information, all of the thousands, and every time I look on there, there's more and more research stuff. So altitude training, there's an example. Just want to find out a little bit more about altitude training. Here's something from sports science, and then there's the study there. And they're all the full studies as well. So they're not just abstracts, there'll be the full PDFs. With everything in there. So that's all stuff that is useful if you want to just think, oh, why are we saying that? How are we backing up the benefits of nasal breathing or the benefits of CO2 tolerance? So loads and loads and reams of studies and papers there. Patrick's 20 odd years worth of practice. And then there's some marketing materials. Let's just go back one more. So things like downloading the logo, using graphical, if you need some images and stuff, there'll be like an image library. There's marketing assets. So you can see there logos, higher res logos for printing. So when I'm putting together like this presentation, I just I have these logos that I've downloaded, and then you can put them into your presentations and things. So that's just a quick whiz through the online element as well. I know there's a lot of stuff there and it can be a bit overwhelming. There's no rush in terms of certifying or anything like that. So there's no limit, there's no deadline. Oh, the clock has just told me it's 1400 hours. That was good timing. Any more questions just before we finish?
What's Tao Yin? Again.
What's what, sorry?
Tao Yin, I've forgotten. T-A-O.
Yeah, so
I get mixed up with all this sort of sub.
Yeah, no, it's very much more sort of like yoga-y based qigong style movement, bit more stretchy. There's some really nice sort of like all of this type of stuff. It's a bit tai chi, but I like it. I don't really teach much of that, but I like it for myself to get my hips moving or to keep me vaguely flexible. It's a little bit more, for me, it's a little bit more, the Qigong is great. It's a little bit more adding that strength training to the Qigong.
I know what it is now. It was a T, it was a Tao, it's Dao Yin.
Dao Yin.
In the opinion, it's Dao Yin. So it's Dao,
yes.
Dao Yin.
Yeah. Good.
Sorry. For wasting anybody else's time that wanted to ask.
No, not at all. Not at all. Anybody got any other thoughts, questions? Susanna.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank you. This is really fabulous presentation. I live in the States, so it feels a little impossible to just, get on the plane and come over for your amazing retreats and workshops. So yeah, just wanted to say that.
Scotland. I've got someone coming over from the States. They've already booked for this September. No excuse.
Awesome.
I'm not quite sure where in the States she's coming from, but she's definitely coming over from the States and doing like a little Europe trip as well at the same time. So no excuse. I expect to see you. But obviously you've got a lot of coaches out there, so they will obviously do similar type of stuff. So it's good. I'm pleased you joined in. Excellent. I will let you all go. Just wanted to share that with you. If you've got any questions, of course, please do give me a shout. And I look forward to catching up with you at some point in the future. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Have a good bank holiday weekend if you're in the UK. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.